After knowing the detailed structure of the heart, now's the time to go forward and know more details about the blood vessels connected to the heart. So actually it's called a cardiovascular system. Cardio means heart, vascular are the blood vessels, and system because those parts together act together to pump blood to faraway areas through the aortic artery. And all these parts, all these details will be explained in the circulation of the heart in the next video. Now, what are the blood vessels? The blood vessels are arteries, veins, and capillaries. What is an artery? Here we should use some mnemonics. Arteries are any blood vessels that carry blood away from the heart. So what is a vein? Veins are any blood vessels that carry blood into the heart. So arteries away from the heart and veins into the heart. How about capillaries? Capillaries are the junction between arteries and veins. So keep in your mind that arteries, veins, and capillaries are the blood vessels. They are different in function and structure, and of course their structure is related to their function. The arteries are very thick. They have a very thick elastic fiber, and of course the function is related to the structure. So you'll find that the arteries are thick, have tough walls with muscles, elastic fibers, and fibrous tissue. The lumen is narrow, and we can think why the lumen is narrow. The artery, as the aorta here, is pumping blood away from the heart. So in order to pump the blood against the gravity, we need the contraction of a muscle of the ventricle, but we also need a very narrow lumen so the pressure will increase and go from higher pressure to lower pressure in other areas of the body. That's why the lumen of the artery is narrow, because the function of the artery carrying blood at high pressure prevents bursting and maintains pressure weight. The large arteries near the heart have a greater proportion of elastic tissue, which allows these vessels to stand up to surges of high pressure caused by the heartbeat. Because as we know that the contraction here of the ventricle, when the blood needs to be pumped through the aorta, in order for the blood to be pumped against the gravity, we need two very important factors. The first is the contraction of the ventricle, and the second is the pressure, the high pressure. Because blood, if there is no high pressure here, it will never move from the ventricle. Because blood and any viscous fluid, it's not about blood only, it's a basic physics. Any viscous fluid, in order to move from an area to another area, it has to move from areas of higher pressure to areas of lower pressure. So arteries are blood vessels that carry blood away from the heart. This is number one. The structure of the artery is related to its function. It's number two. In order to withstand the high pressure, that has to have very thick lumen, very thick walls, and very narrow lumen to withstand the high pressure of pumping blood to very far away areas. This is an artery. How about veins? Veins are almost the opposite to arteries. They carry blood into the heart. This is number one. And when we talk about its structure, they're composed of very thin walls, mainly fibrous tissue with little muscles. The lumen is large, but very important thing, the key word to keep in your mind, that the veins have valves. This is another thing to remember, VV. The veins have valves. And why do veins have valves? Can you think about that? Blood goes to your legs, right? And you have veins in your legs. And the blood has to go back into the heart. It has to go back against the gravity. So when the blood goes up, if there are no valves, the backflow will happen and the blood will remain in your legs. And a good example for that is when you travel in a long flight and you stay for a long time, let's say 13 or 14 hours sitting, and you were wearing your shoes, you'll feel that your shoes becoming very tight. Actually, because the blood is static in your legs. And that's why they advise you to move around, so your muscles will be encouraged to contract, the muscles of your legs, and allow blood to go up. And of course the valves would prevent the backflow of blood into your legs, as an example. So the veins have valves. The veins are very wide, they have wide lumen. And the most important thing to keep in mind, that the valves act to prevent backflow of blood. Contraction of body muscles, particularly in the limbs, compress the thin walls veins, and the valves prevent the blood flowing backwards when the vessels are compressing in this way. How about capillaries? Capillaries are very thin. They are thin that they're composed of one cell, only one cell in thickness. This is the wall of the capillary, and this is the RBC. This is the blood. This represents the blood that goes through the capillaries. The capillaries are very thin, and as we mentioned before, that the structure is related to the function. The capillaries are very thin because its function is exchange. Whenever there is exchange, you'll find capillaries. Can we think of an example of an area in our body where there is exchange, or exchange is very important? The alveoli. The alveoli, which are the smallest structure in the respiratory system, the alveoli are surrounded by very dense network of capillaries in order for exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide to take place. So this allows diffusion of materials, not only oxygen and carbon dioxide, in other areas like the intestine. The villi of the intestine are surrounded by capillaries for exchange between the capillary and surrounding tissues. So capillaries are the areas or the site or the smallest blood vessels. They are the connection between arteries and veins. Let's have a look to know more about this part. If this was the arterial end, and this is the venous end, this is the artery and this is the vein. This is the arterial end and this is the venous end. The artery divides into very smaller arterioles, and the vein divides into very smaller venules. So the artery branches into very smaller arterioles, and the vein into very smaller venules. They branch and they keep branching into very smaller and smaller and smaller until there's a venules and arterioles branching together, and they meet in the area here where they form what is called as capillaries. So artery, vein, artery into arterioles, veins into venules, until we reach the smallest part of the blood vessels, which are called capillaries. We said that the function of capillaries is exchange, the function of artery is pumping blood away from the heart, and the function of veins is pumping blood into the heart. This is all about blood vessels. In the next chapter or the next video, we'll talk about the circulation of blood in the heart. Thank you.